Okay, students, good morning to everybody. So, today we shall start the next chapter, that is correlation. The correlation is also one of the important chapter. So, this is the base of the population genetics. So, one should have the basic concept about the correlation. So, now what is correlation? Correlation is the average relationship between two or more variables. Okay, it is the average relationship between two or more variables. Now, what do you mean by variables? Variables means is the character which takes some measurements, numerical values, or you can say there are two things. So one is the variables and another is the attributes. The traits which is measured by certain metric units are called variables, and the traits which cannot be measured by certain metric units are called the attributes. Say for example, that is all variables are designated as quantitative traits, and whereas all attributes are designated as qualitative traits. So quantitative traits means that is milk production, lactation length, lactation milk yield, your age at sexual maturity, all can be quantified and can be measured in terms of some numerical value. But whereas attributes, that is the color of the flower, color of the animals, these are called attributes, and we can say out of these many numbers of animals, these many number of animals are white, or these many number of animals are black and white, like this. So we can say one group is the frequency or the frequency or percentage of a particular group of animals or particular quality character, that we can say. But in case of variables, the it is of again two types. One is continuous variable, and other kind is discrete or discontinuous. So continuous, what is the meaning of continuous and discrete? Continuous variable means the variable which takes any values within a certain range. Say, for example, the milk production. So, milk production, if we measure in terms of the kilogram, so if we say that the milk production of the crossbred animal, particular cross, maybe the Friesian cross, or maybe the Jersey cross, or maybe the brown Swiss cross. So, whenever we are talking a particular crossbred, or we are talking about the particular breed, that is indigenous breed, dairy breeds like some Sahiwal, Red Sindhi, Gir, Tharparkar, like this. So we have to say that this crossbred animals produces milk on an average from this and about the 20 kilo or 10 kilo, like this, or the our desi animals produces the milk, that is Sahiwal, ranging from the 5 kilo per day to 10 kilo per day. This will be the range. So within this range, a cow producing the milk that will be that comes generally with this range, and the milk production of, if we consider thousands of animals or more than 10,000s of animals, if we record it, and you will find the values varies continuously. There is no distinction from one value to another value. That means that means we cannot put them in a particular group as the attributes. So it is black to black, white to white, red to red. लेकिन इसमें इस तरह का नहीं है. So we cannot. That's why we can say if it is production value is varies from 5 to 10 kilo. So values may be the 5 kilo, 5.1 kilo, 5.1 to 5 kilo, 5.1 to 5 kilo, like this. So this will continue. So that's why this is called the continuous variable. And other variables which are also measured in some metric units and expressed in a numerical value, maybe the discrete. Maybe discrete means they have some round value. There is no fraction. So that's why they are called discrete variable. Say for example, the there is percentage like this. So you can say 20%, 30%, 50%, like this. So this, when we say this type of things, then we can say discrete variables. So now the types of correlation. So correlation means it is the relationship or associationship or interdependence between two or more variables. So this is all are talking about the quantitative traits. So now the types of correlation. The correlation are of different types. So it may be the according to the direction of the direction of the variables, it is positive, negative, zero correlation, and according to the number of variables involved, that may be the simple, multiple, and the partial, and according to the proportionate change between the two variables, we can classify it into the linear and non-linear correlation. So according to direction, we say that is the positive correlation and the negative correlation and zero correlation. So what is the positive correlation? Positive correlation means when both the variables move in the same direction. That means that if we see an example, the height and weight of the human being or height and length of the animal, if we say these are two variables, they move in the same direction. Height बढ़ेगा तो weight बढ़ेगा, length बढ़ेगा तो animal का वो weight बढ़ेगा. So that these two variables move in the same direction. If we say एक अगर height घटेगा तो weight भी घटेगा, length घटेगा तो वजन भी कम होगा. So that means both the variables move in the same direction. Either both are increasing or both are decreasing. When we find this type of nature between the two variables, then we say they are positively correlated. And on the other hand, if both the variables move in the opposite direction, it means that if one variable are increases, then the subsequent the other variables are decreases consequently. So then the relationship between these two variables are negative in nature, and we say these are negatively correlated, and the correlation is called negative correlation. Say for example, that is milk yield and the fat percentage. If the milk yield is increasing, then definitely fat percentage will decrease. Or you can say if we want to increase the fat percent, and definitely if we select the animals for higher fat percentage, definitely the milk production also will go down in the simultaneously, because these two characters are negatively correlated. That we'll find or we'll discuss when we're talking about the genetic correlation, because here genetically involved these two characters. So these are the negative correlation. So then zero correlation. In case of zero correlation, we'll find that that one correlation, one variable when moves either in decreasing or increasing order, then the other variables will tends to remain constant. There will be no change in the other variable. Then when this type of relationship is observed between the two variables, then we say there is no correlation between these two variables, and we call it the zero correlation. We call it zero correlation. Next, other classification according to the number of variables involved. When, as we know that correlation is the association or interdependence between two or more variables. When the correlation between two variables are studied, then we call it a simple correlation. When three or more variables are involved, but that means when we are studying the correlation between two or more variables, then it is called the multiple correlation. As for example, that is in case of simple correlation, that is height and weight, milk production and the fat percentage. Or in case of multiple correlation, say for example, that is feed quality and quantity of feed given, or feed conversion ratio, body weight. These are three or more, four or more variables are correlated together. So this type of correlation is said to be the multiple correlation. And the partial correlation, in case of partial correlation, it is also the correlation between three or more variables, but that means more than two variables are involved. But in this partial correlation, we study the correlation between two variables at a time, but we find out the correlation between two variables at a time, and while the other variables are kept constant. So this is called the partial correlation. Then the other classification according to the proportionate change between the two variables. That is linear and non-linear correlation. That means when the values of both the variables are put in the x and y axis, then we'll find they the values are put together in the x-axis and y-axis, and the corresponding points when put on the graph paper, you will find, and they joined all the points, you will find a straight line. And that means if one is, and a constant ratio is maintained between the two variables. Say for example that I have given one example, that if x, the magnitude of x varies from, that is 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25, and the corresponding values for y variable is 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50, then we will find that there is constant ratio, that is half. 5 है तो 10 है, that is more than double. 10 है तो 20, 15 है तो 30, 20 है तो 40, 25 है तो 50. That the corresponding values of y is just double to that of the values in the x variable. So, and that means it maintains the constant ratio of half from beginning to the end. So this type of correlation is called the linear. Linear means it will maintain a straight line when you put the values in the graph paper. And the and other in besides the linear correlation, and whatever the other straight line is observed when put the values of two variables, then we'll find the non-linear correlation. That means maybe the curvilinear correlation means when one is not, they are not maintaining the constant ratio from beginning to the end. That's just like the linear जैसे है, इस तरह का वो मेंटेन नहीं करेंगे. किसी को मान लीजिए 5 है तो किसी का 7 हो सकता है, 8 हो सकता है, जस्ट डबल नहीं होगा बट ट्रिपल नहीं होगा. तो इस तरह का जो variables है, then there we will not find a linear graph, and we may find a curvilinear or the non-linear. So these are the types of correlation, or the classification of the correlation. And this now it is the coefficient of correlation. This is the degree of association between the two variables can be measured, and it can be measured with the help of coefficient of correlation. The coefficient of correlation is the degree of association or the degree of relationship between two or more variables, and it is always denoted as small r, and it is written as r subscript xy when x and y are the two variables. So we denote it rxy. Rxy means it is the correlation between x and y variables. So we can write rxy or we can write ryx, whatever may be, but the magnitude of both the variables rxy and ryx are equal. So this is the properties of the correlation also. And this concept of correlation or the coefficient of correlation was given by Professor Carl Pearson, and he has also given one how to estimate the coefficient of correlation. That's why it is the also known as Pearsonian correlation. The methods to estimate the coefficient of correlation, that is the Pearsonian method, that is given by Professor Carl Pearson. That is, the formula is Rxy is the covariance of xy by standard deviation of x, in product of the standard deviation of x into standard deviation of y. That is the product, the covariance of the xy, the two variables x and y, and the multiplication and the divided by the product of the standard deviation of x variable into standard deviation of y variable. And this formula has come up from the variance. Variance means it is the computation formula of variance that you know, that is summation of x square. If x is a variable, then summation of x square minus summation of x whole square divided by n and whole divided by n minus 1. So summation of x square means here x into x summation x square. Summation x whole square means summation x into summation x. So here, if we write the, in case of in one variable, we add one variable, that is x and y. So covariance of xy is equal to summation xy minus summation x into summation y. That means if the two variables, magnitude of the two variables are there, so you first multiply the values of corresponding values of x and y variable, and then sum up, then we will get the summation xy. Then summation x and summation y, that means you add the values of x variable and add the values of y variable, then then you take the product value, then you will just summation x into summation y. So this summation, so the ultimately the formula is summation xy minus summation x into summation y by n whole divided by n minus 1, that is the degree of freedom. Then standard deviation of x, standard deviation x, that is the standard deviation is the positive square root of variance. So it is the it is the square root of variance, that is summation x square minus summation x whole square. इसमें इसमें छूट गया, स्क्वायर रूट होगा यहाँ पे, स्क्वायर रूट होगा यहाँ पे भी स्क्वायर रूट होगा. स्टैंडर्ड डिवीजन x is the plus positive square root of the variable. So the what is the computation formula of the coefficient of correlation? So Rxy is equal to, this is the covariance of xy, that is summation xy minus summation x into summation y by n. इसमें होना चाहिए तो whole divided by n minus 1, and the in the denominator is the under root of the product of the standard variance of the two variables, that is summation x square minus summation x whole square by n divided by n minus 1 भी है, and y का है summation y square minus summation y whole square divided by n by whole divided by n minus 1. So ये इसमें दोनों में n minus 1 है, so you can take outside the root, so it will be 1 by n minus 1, and in the numerator it is also having the n minus 1. So in both cases n minus 1 and n minus 1 from numerator and denominator will be deleted as the common factor. So ultimately, it is the formula of the coefficient of correlation between two variables x and y will be summation x to xy minus summation x into summation y whole divided by n, and divided by under root of the product of the variance x summation x square minus summation x whole square by n into variance of the y variable, that summation y square minus summation y whole square divided by n, where n is the pair number of observation. So this is about the Pearsonian correlation. And now the properties of the coefficient of correlation. The coefficient of correlation, that you know, that is the ranges from -1 to +1 including 0. So in the middle point, the 0 value will be there. That means it is not like it's likely that the correlation between two variables may be 0 also, maybe -1 also, maybe +1 also, or maybe any values between -1 to +1. So that's why it is ranges from this to this. That when it will be 0, that you have seen the 0 correlation, that is when one variable moves either in increasing or decreasing direction, then other variable tends to remain constant, then we call it the 0 correlation. So that's why the coefficient of correlation may be 0. Say for example, if we say this is a spurious correlation, that is the height of the human being may be correlated with the height of the table. If all the tables is the inert object and height is constant, if with the several number of tables and we have the several number of individuals, so values of height of the several number of individuals are different. They are but the height of the all the tables remains constant. So in this case, the correlation between height of the human being and the height of the table will be 0. So that is meant to say that is, and it is a, and when -1 will be there, minus and +1 will be there. When -1 is the magnitude is -1, it means the perfect negative correlation. If +1 is there, it means perfect positive correlation. -1 means when the variable, when one variables are increasing, then other variables, the other variables are decreasing in a decreasing order, but they also maintain a constant ratio. Similarly, in case of the +1, that means if one variable, both the variables moves in the same direction, and they also maintain a constant ratio, then we will find the magnitude of the correlation will be the -1 or the +1. So -1 means perfect negative correlation, +1 means perfect positive correlation. So it is a ratio of the covariance and the variance, product of the variance, square root of the variance, and then it is a pure number and it has no unit. So +1 is means the perfect positive correlation, -1 is the perfect negative correlation. And when r is equal to 0, it means there is no correlation between the two variables. That means they are not associated. And then rxy will be equal to the ryx. So these are the properties of the coefficient of correlation. There are other methods to estimate the coefficient of correlation, but that is scatter diagram method, graphing method, rank correlation method, and the least squares method. In case of scatter method and the scatter diagram method and the graphing method, we can only assess that what will be the type of correlation between the two variables. Because in case of scatter diagram method we'll plot the point in between the in the subsequent point of the corresponding values of the two variables. So if you plot it, so we will find only some dot. So several number of dots will be there in the corresponding values of the x and y. So that means the all values are scattered throughout the diagram. If all the points you will find that is they are moving in a increasing order from the left bottom corner to the right upper corner, then we'll find that that means both the values are in a positive direction. They're moving in this order. If one variables are increasing order and other variables are in decreasing order, then we will say this from this diagram we can say these are in a negative correlation. So similarly in the graphic method, in case of graphic method, for both the variables we will find that two different graph. Uh, but here in both the scatter diagram method and the graphic method, we cannot find a definite the definite value magnitude of the coefficient of correlation. But in case of rank correlation, and we can find the definite magnitude of the coefficient of correlation. And like in case of least square also, we can find the magnitude of the coefficient of correlation. So now, what is the rank correlation? Suppose there are two variables x and y. So both variables will find some both values are there, magnitudes are there, and if we place them in a certain rank, and so the correlation between the rank of the two variables is known as rank correlation. Correlation between the rank of the two variables is known as rank correlation. It is measured by the degree of association between the ranks of the two variables. So that is, so for example, that is, if we say that the students obtain the marks in the statistics, marks in the animal genetics and breeding, and whatever the marks obtained by the students in a class, so we mark them as a rank. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like this. जो highest marks मिला, he or she got the first rank, and subsequently you will get the second rank, third rank. Similarly, so if you are having the midterm marks and the final marks, and both are ranked together, then we'll find the correlation between the rank of the two variables, and this is called the rank correlation. This concept of rank correlation was given by the Professor Spearman, and it is like the correlation. Since it is a correlation, so it has got no unit, and it has the ranges from -1 to +1. But rank correlation, the formula is different from the simple correlation coefficient of correlation. It is the 1 minus 6 into, this is 6, not sigma. This is 1 minus 6 into summation di square by n into n square minus 1, where 6 di is the difference between the rank of the two variables, and n is the pair number of observation. So di is the xi minus yi. Xi is the ith rank of variable, x variable. Yi is the ith rank of the y variable. N is the pair number of observation. Summation di is equal to 0. It is just like the mean deviation. So when you values are deviated and they take the total value, it will be 0. Just to avoid this problem. So all the deviated values are squared. Here is find one example. The students obtain the marks in animal genetics breeding. So A, B, C, D, E, F, 6 students marks are there. So in the midterm value, that is the x variable, and the rank final marks, that is y variable. So these are the ranked according to the marks. So now here is the di xi minus yi and the di square. So di square is the 26. So you put the values in the rank formula of the rank person. So 1 minus 6 into 26 by 6 into that is n into n square, that is 36 minus 1. After solution, you will get the value is 0.25. So this is the magnitude of the coefficient of rank correlation. Next, we can find the standard error of the correlation. So it is, the formula is there. There's a 1 minus r square by under root n, and then probable error is there. It is probable error is 0.6745 into standard error, that is 1 minus r square by under root n. So if we say that is coefficient of correlation is less than the probable error, then we can conclude that there is no correlation between the two variables. Though there is values, magnitudes are there, but there is no significant correlation between the two variables. If the coefficient of correlation is more than 6 times to that of the probable error, then we say the coefficient of correlation is certain and significant. Okay. Then coefficient of correlation, whether it is significant or not, that can also be tested. So coefficient of correlation is tested through t-test at n minus 2 degrees of freedom. So coefficient of correlation is tested through n minus 2 degrees of freedom. So you can find out the calculated value of t as the t n minus 2 degree of freedom is, formula is there, r into under root n minus 2, that is degree of freedom, minus divided by under root 1 minus r square. Now, what will be the interpretation? If interpretation will be like this: if the calculated value of t is more than the tabulated value of t for the corresponding degrees of freedom, that is n minus 2 is the degree of freedom, and the level of significance, that is 5% or 1% level of significance is considered. So if the calculated value of t is greater than the tabulated value of t for the corresponding degree of freedom and level of significance, then we say the correlation is significant. And otherwise, if the calculated value is lesser than the tabulated value at the corresponding degrees of freedom and level of significance, then we can conclude there is no significant correlation between the two variables. Okay. So the use of coefficient of correlation, that is, it can be used for prediction of future performance on the basis of the past record. So this is the formula is there. Predicted value of y and x, y prime is equal to y bar minus r into s y, that standard deviation of y by standard deviation of x into x minus x bar. The standard deviation of y is the standard deviation of y variable. X means standard deviation of x variable, x minus x bar. So this is the formula by which we can predict the value of y variable for any given value of x variable. The other uses, the coefficient of correlation measures the degree of relationship between the two characters, and that is x and y variables are there, so we can measure the degree of relationship, how much they are related. Then similarly, the coefficient of correlation can also be used for estimation of the heritability. The square of the correlation between breeding value and the phenotypic value is the heritability, that we have already studied when we have talked, we have dealt with about the heritability chapter. Then we have seen that this is another definition of heritability, that the square of the correlation between breeding value and phenotypic value is the heritability. This is another use of correlation by which we can estimate the magnitude of heritability of the character. Then correlation also used, or we can say there is relationship between correlation and the regression. So regression of y on x is equal to the correlation between xy into the ratio of the standard deviation of y by standard deviation x. So ratio में देखो एक चीज देखिए, the numerator है, numerator is always the standard deviation of the dependent variable, and the below the is the standard deviation is of independent variable. Similarly, dxy is equal to rxy into sigma x by sigma y. So these are the this is the relationship between the coefficient of correlation and the regression coefficient. So these are the uses of the coefficient of correlation. Now I have given one problem. You write this problem. So this is an exercise. So it's exercise for you. You just calculate it. You tell me the magnitude of the coefficient of correlation rxy, and give me in the in your through mobile. So estimate the coefficient of correlation rxy from the following values of x and y variable. So there are 6 values are there, both x and y. So here values are given. Of x is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? X is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very easy to remember. Even if you can write after this class, the magnitude of y is just different. That is 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. There is one is increasing trend. The other variables is in decreasing trend. Now, what will be the magnitude of coefficient of correlation? So we have to calculate it and um, and um, and send me the answer. Students, hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
you just write this problem. Now you say, because time is just 2 minutes are there. So if you any problem, any things, because you have already Dr. Ramesh Singh has already taken this class. This is your revision type class. So if there is any problem, you just tell me, and I have, because this correlation, next topic will be the regression. I want to take this regression also, and then analysis of variance. Then we will find that it will be very clear to you that how the statistics is the base of the population genetics. How to understand the population genetics, then one has to know, one has to the grip on the statistics. So this is very simple. ऐसे कोई ये नहीं है, the statistics का मतलब है it is mathematics, full of बहुत difficult task नहीं है. देखो, if you want to enter into the subject, then you will find